let's take a look at the Kenyan election outcome, and of course the confidence certainly has spurred in the economy right now. Analysts expect the ongoing economic recovery there to go ahead. However, foreign investors may take a while longer to see a meaningful increase. But that should also start to rise in the near term. That's what analysts are saying. For more on what we can expect in the short to medium term from a policy perspective in Kenya, Brian Lamini, Sovereign Risk Analyst at RMB. Brian, thanks for joining us. So changing to Kenya now, of course, we saw that a rate decision coming through from Uganda, steady as she goes there. And it seems that, I suppose, the election result in Kenya has been upheld. From a South African perspective, from an RMB perspective, how's this perceived?
Well, this is really good news, as it were, for the country that, you know, the elections are now behind the country, or rather the uncertainty is now behind the country. But I mean, there's 4 key challenges now going forward for the new president, Uhuru Kenyatta. He has to have a representative, or look to have a representative government going forward. We know about the ethnic division issues in the country. That came out quite strongly in the way people voted in the election. So there's a need for him to have a fairly, you know, wide and wide-cutting cabinet going forward.
So it's also about the actual political appointments when it comes to that.
So that is very, very important, actually, because part of that will equal policy continuity as insofar as retaining key technocrats in this current government. This was an inclusive government based on the fact that, you know, it was a coalition government, so it had a nice mixture of almost everyone across the board. So that's the first challenge. I mean, the second challenge is, look, the economy is on a fairly positive footing. Inflation is down, interest rates are down as well, foreign reserves are fairly stable. The currency is looking a bit more predictable. So there will be, the president will have to look at easy gains going forward to make sure that this talks to his election manifesto. So he'll have to have a couple of, you know, easy wins going forward, say into the next year, because the economy is set to grow. He must now, you know, really take this to heart and moving forward. The other issue, which is actually a very interesting one, is the country's geopolitical importance in the region. Kenya is important from a security perspective, looking at the Al-Shabaab. So when one looks at how will the Western powers handle Kenya going forward, because they will want to participate, or rather, for especially the US, the war against terror is very, very close to their hearts, or very important for the US. So how will they now handle Uhuru Kenyatta going forward? That is very, very interesting.
How has the US been engaging with the Kenyan government up until this point in time when it comes to issues with the Al-Shabaab?
Well, the US has been very supportive. They've been deploying forces. They've actually got a base in Kenya. And going forward, I mean, the Western powers say, look, they would want to really distance themselves from an ICC accused person or president. But then again, on the other hand, they want to get involved in the fight against terror. So this geopolitical importance of Kenya might just actually counterbalance the need for, or the talk around sanctions in the country. And I mean, just finally going to the fourth challenge of the ICC, look, no one knows what will happen. The charges
how do investors deal with this right now? I mean, what is RMB's position on this? Because you know, speaking to people from, for example, RMB and other investors prior to the election result coming through, they said we'd prefer to just sit on the sidelines. So is it still that case?
Well, it's a wait and see. But I think what is also, so it's a wait and see on one hand. But I think the other thing to really remember in all of this is that Uhuru Kenyatta, there is a possibility that he might be acquitted of the charges. So there is also that lingering in the background, which might actually free him and free some time for him to really get down to, you know, the business of governing going forward. So yes, he might get his, you know, resources in the form of time, his physical self going to The Hague and so on might be committed to the case going forward, and there's uncertainty going there. But then it might actually go...
I'm sure a few sleepless nights one might assume on that front.
Yeah, so that's definitely the case. But then again, it might happen that charges are acquitted, and then he really gets to really govern
do the
country.
job of running the country. One thing that you have left out is the issue around the burgeoning potential oil revenues and the oil sector. What are your thoughts on how this needs to be handled? Because when it comes to the mining sector, we know that the whole issue around state equity ownership really kind of scared off some investors and wasn't taken that well by foreign investors. So what is Uhuru Kenyatta, what signal does he need to send out to foreign investors now?
Well, actually, from external investors, they actually have been saying, look, there's a perception that Kenya is going to get going with the oil story much sooner than Uganda, which is right next door, because of the need to understand or rehash legislation, and etc., etc. So there's a perception that, look, Kenya can really do it much sooner than Uganda. That remains to be seen. But at this stage, look, it's understood to be still quite a bit of time out, far out, when oil will start to trickle, say some 5 years. But
the policies need to start being put in place now.
That's exactly where some external parties are saying, look, Kenya has the capacity to really thresh legislation, understand what it's doing, make sure that government participates as it's required to participate and really understand what it's doing as they establish this oil sector.